All
Go.
right, welcome to another Twinstiq podcast. I'm Billy C.
I'm Greywolf.
And I'm John Roush. What's up? How's it going?
Good, good, good. All right, so we got some things we want to talk about, right?
Yeah,
That's
that'll be
that's
the
the
one.
plan. That's the plan.
All right. Now, feel free to jump in anytime. I'm just gonna kind of start going down the list and see what's going on here. So we'll start with Greywolf. What are you playing recently? What have you been up to?
At the moment, I'm playing Phantasmagoria. In amongst all the other stuff that I do play regularly, I'm playing Quest for Glory 2, The Dig, and also a game that I haven't figured out yet. Probably Hearthstone's new adventure,
Ah,
but mostly Phantasmagoria.
how's Phantasmagoria treating you?
So far, it's been okay. It's very spooky, but we'll talk about that when we get to the topic that I nominated. But it's quite weird playing it 20 years on.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, so John, how about you? What are you playing right now?
I actually picked up a copy of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and I'm falling down a really deep hole. Oh, it's a nightmare. I thought I would hate it, but 4 hours in, I'm just like, okay, I could get used to this. I need to go find some mushrooms and hit a dinosaur in the face with a giant hammer.
It does sound tempting. Have you
Super tempting.
have you played any of the Monster Hunter games before this?
Okay, I remember playing. Oh, and this is terrible. We played Monster Hunter off a very bootleg PS2 back in the day. We actually ripped the cover off, turned the sensitivity of the laser up. It would shine on the ceiling when we played it.
Jesus.
It was the only way we could get these terrible, terrible copies of the games that we managed to get our hands on to run.
I've actually still never played it. I own the Monster Hunter for Wii, Monster Hunter Tri, whatever they called it.
Okay. Yeah.
But I bought it used like a month ago, so I haven't actually played it, and there's no online now, so it's I don't know. I don't know if I'll actually get around to it.
Okay, that's basically the same one that I'm playing because I had also picked that up a couple years ago. Played it for like maybe an hour. This is definitely the same game on the 3DS. The new one though, the 4, that's a completely different game.
That looks very interesting. I'd be eager to get in on the ground floor of that and actually play multiplayer with that. That's where I hear the most fun is.
Oh yeah, I think so. I played like 2 or 3 missions co-op, and then that's a lot of fun. But there's actually a demo out for Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. You could always download that and give it a shot. I think
Yeah,
it's just local, maybe.
I want to say you're right. I want to say I was actually on vacation with some friends and they were downloading it while we were in the same room. So, okay, so we'll move on to me real quick. What am I playing right now? Actually, for my birthday, which was March 26th, I picked up Pillars of Eternity for myself, and I have been pretty much nonstop playing that.
Is it as is it? I know it's sort of a special successor to all the Village Gate things and that. Is it as good as that, or
Oh, okay. Well, without being able
are
to
you?
speak to the end story, you know how the whole arc will play out. I would say that it easily lives up to the gameplay of the originals. In fact, it's surprisingly similar to the old D&D games. Not just in like, yes, of course they wanted to go with that same kind of that same feeling, the same top-down view, but I'm talking about the cursor that dictates where you move looks the same as the cursor from
Oh
Baldur's
wow.
Gate. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, they couldn't use the D&D license, of course, so they couldn't use like your wizards memorize spells for a certain amount of time, but they kind of went around that and they did it their own way so that your spells and your abilities, there are one of two types. They're either well, I mean, there are a couple different types, but the two main ones you're going to look at are you've got per encounter abilities, so you can use them and then you can't use it again until the next encounter. Or like, let's say you have 4 level 1 spells for per encounter, then you could use those 4 times any of those spells, 4 level 1
Right.
spells for that encounter, but then you can't use them again. But as soon as you get out of that fight and you start another one, you've got them back. And then there are the per day, per rest, whatever you want to call it, where you
Okay.
actually have to rest and But then they also do some other stuff that I really like because I never really liked that whole per day spell limit, because then I'd use up all my wizard spells and then he felt like a useless sack for 10 minutes while playing.
The rest of the day.
Yeah. But one of the things
That's
I
just
really...
from, like, really bad old D&D, though.
Yeah. And that's why I was kind of surprised they brought it over a little bit. I was like, really? That was one of the things I didn't like. But they also did things like grimoires. So your mage has a spell book, right? And he knows certain spells, and he can only have so many in his spell book of each level at a time, right?
Okay.
Well, you can have more than one. So, for instance, I killed a evil mage, and I got to pick up his spell book, and now my guy can switch out to that spell book in combat, and even though he doesn't know those spells, he can cast them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just it's surprisingly similar to Baldur's Gate, but I think just a newer version. It really is a spiritual successor in every way I can imagine.
That's pretty good. I'm glad to hear that.
So they definitely hit the target they were aiming for.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you didn't like those old games, or you were like, man, I really wish they would change them, yeah, you're not going to like it. But if you were a fan of them like I was, I really liked a lot of them. You know, there were some issues, but they're still really fun. This has got that same kind of thing, and you've got, I mean, the story that I've encountered so far is good. All of the dialogue is really good, and they did voice acting, but not everything is voice acted. So you know, the main stuff will be voice acted, and then occasionally when you go talk to somebody, they'll have like the first, you know, dialogue bubble, so to speak, voice acted, and then it'll go to kind of just text.
In other words, it's exactly like Baldur's Gate was.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They didn't do everything because there's just too much text, but but it works out for what it is.
Okay, that sounds excellent.
Sounds like a winner for fans of the Baldur's Gate series.
Yes, and I'll be doing there are some other issues with it. I'll be doing a full review when I eventually beat it. It's going to take a long time.
A long time, yeah.
But there's been some bugs and some glitches. I actually had to completely restart my game because I went into a specific house, and there's just a bug where sometimes you just can't come out. It would just infinitely try and load. So they're actually supposed to have a patch come out tomorrow night that's going to fix that. But so I mean they're working on it. They are trying to fix all the little bugs, but it's Obsidian. There's always some game breaking bugs.
With those guys, there's always something bad going wrong.
Yeah, I think it's because they shoot for the moon, and they never quite make it, but it's still great, you know.
They try.
Yeah, and I think I'd rather have somebody try.
Yeah, that kind of sees us nicely into the next segment, which is gaming news. So there's probably stuff that, I don't know, you guys have looked at that seems interesting that you want to talk about. So let's talk about that.
Well, I have this great website called Twinstiq pulled up right now, and it's just chock full of great news. Couple highlights I'm just going to pull up real quick. Looks like Dragon Quest Heroes 2 got announced. That game's been out for not very long. We don't even have it yet in the States, so that already got a sequel. There's a deluge of Nintendo news, which you should check out on twinstiq.com.
Well, they just did their direct this week, didn't they? Or
yes,
this week.
It was yesterday.
Okay.
And the biggest thing out of that for me is Fatal Frame is finally coming out here.
Yeah.
Super excited.
What worries me, actually, what's sort of worrying me about the Nintendo Direct, not the Nintendo Direct exactly, but the news coming out of Nintendo is like they're delaying things, like the Zelda's being delayed. That's a bit worrying for Nintendo.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, what's the dialogue on that right now? It's like, are they giving up on the Wii U?
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. Are they going to go, well, we're going to push this to the next system that we're going to make, or we're going to try and get it in a window for the Wii U? What's going on there? That's very scary for Nintendo.
I feel like and I mean, everybody's talking about this, and they have been for a while now. I feel like the Wii U it's almost in that same kind of thing that the PS3 was when it launched. I mean, nobody was picking up the PS3, and in that case, it was the price point that was just too high for most people. But it just kind of was at that point where, like, are they just going to give up on it? and then all of a
and
sudden
Sony's
it hit.
response was like, get a second job.
Yeah, but then after a while now, I mean, they sold a ton by the end. And I think if Nintendo sticks with the Wii U, they could still do it, but they're going to have to really... I mean, it's going to be supported completely by first-party titles for the most part. There's just no real third-party support there.
And that's where Nintendo's facing challenges that the PS3 just didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the deciding factor, right? Because with the PS3 is eventually companies like Ubisoft and EA managed to turn it around, and their PS3 versions were on par with the 360 at least. I mean, I remember early PS3 ports like Fear came out a year later and ran worse. Not the best call. I mean, that was an uphill fight, but I think Nintendo's got it a lot worse than that. I just hope this isn't a Dreamcast situation where this thing's in the ground already.
Yeah.
That would be kind of sad.
My hope is that they're gonna do it. What I think that they need to do is they need, obviously got to spend money to make money, and I think in this case it's entirely what they need to do. They need to go to some developers and say, hey, you're not interested in developing for the Wii U, but we'll help fund your development cycle if you come out on the Wii U. Like, oh, you'll need an extra 4 months to get it on the Wii U, an extra 6 months to get it ported over to the Wii U. That's fine. We'll pay you that extra 6 months just to get a couple of big names on there, and that can kind of turn it around, get that momentum going.
And I'm not completely convinced that they aren't doing that. It's just what they're going for is like, I mean, maybe the word's esoteric. But what's the game? Devil's Third? That seems like a bit out of left field for Nintendo to back something like that. That's the guy who made Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox and the old ones, I think maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really out there for Nintendo to back a very mature and kind of over-the-top game. But then again, Bayonetta, so...
I was just going to say that. They did the Bayonetta thing.
Surprisingly.
I mean, so maybe this is just a repeat of that, but is that going to help them gain any traction? I guess that's the real question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I have to wonder if Nintendo... Yeah, I mean, they kind of made console gaming at the time. You know, of course, there was the Atari before it, but we all know, Nintendo kind of really made it popular, right? Do they know what the current gaming market is? I mean, they're still making all their old games mostly the same as they've been making them for years, and people buy them because, hey, it's Zelda and it's still good. It's Mario and it's still good, but we haven't really seen anything new that's been amazing out of Nintendo for a long time. And I wonder if they just don't get what the current like Western gaming market wants.
I think that's really fair. And then the question there too is, do they eventually decide to court Western developers?
Right.
Is that something that's on Nintendo's like, maybe we should do this? I'm sure there's indie developers with cool ideas that would work on Wii U. Nintendo just needs to take that step.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
maybe transcend those games from indie into a more AA, AAA thing.
Yeah, because like for example, Shovel Knight worked really well, evidently on the Nintendo consoles. So they can do it. They've done it before. They should be looking more into that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But then you also have to wonder, Shovel Knight was a very Nintendo game. I mean, the whole point of it was made kind of like an old NES game. But then you've got other indie games that have come out recently. Would Nintendo pick up that same kind of game? I don't know if they'd be willing to support that.
That's true. There is that.
But then they've got their Virtual Console, which is, I mean...
All of those games lined up, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I worry for them because I really want it to do well, because as a gamer, I want more options. You know what I mean? I want that to be there.
Yeah. But that leads you nicely into your topic, because you want to talk about the Amiibo, and that's all Nintendo.
Yeah, which is today's nightmare.
Tell your story. Tell your story.
All right, it's time to divulge what happened to me today. I went to pre-order Wave 4 of Amiibo, which consists of, I don't know, some Fire Emblem characters, Pac-Man, and most importantly, Ness. I decided to pre-order these Amiibo at my local GameStop, and these things were supposed to go on sale at 3 o'clock. So I walk into GameStop a little before 2, actually, way early. I'm really wanting this Ness. So I go in, I ask them, hey, what's up? Am I going to be able to do this today? And they're like, sure, you have to be here at 3, like on the dot. We recommend you show up 10 minutes early. There might be a lot of people. So I go out to the car and I'm just like, I'm going to play some Monster Hunter 3 while I'm waiting. So, as I'm playing, I'm watching this, very small line build up. A couple of people go into the store and just aren't coming out. So I'm like, okay, this is probably the Amiibo getting crew. So I follow in, and you just there's maybe by the end of this line building up, there's what, 6, 7 people at the most. So we're waiting there. 3 o'clock comes. We start the process of the purchases. I don't know if you've ever been to a GameStop launch event.
Yeah.
They sort of like
There's no GameStop here.
Oh, okay. Well, they like to do the pre-sailing. Like they try to get you. They didn't do any of that. They were just going to ring us out as we went. And because the way this is set up, they want you to prepay in full because you're actually ordering from their website, which is why this ended up being such a hiccup for them. Is GameStop decided to not stagger this thing across time zones. Every GameStop in the U.S. tried to hit this at the same time.
Oh no!
So when they attempted
that's going to be a bit of a disaster.
Oh, it was for sure. When they attempted to do this, the servers locked up, I guess.
Yeah.
And
I mean, because what probably happened was the big centers. You might not have been a big center because you're saying there were 7 people there. The big centers suddenly got hit by like a wave of dudes and scalpers, and suddenly their infrastructure just crashed under the weight of all that.
yeah, it was terrible. We were actually there just over an hour before the first orders were processed. I was second in line. There was a girl in front of me who just wanted Ness, but ended up getting the Splatoon group, same as me.
Okay.
But yeah, in there over an hour trying to get these servers to run, and I just got to say that they handled it really well considering.
Yeah.
But you can tell they weren't expecting this.
No.
So
I mean, it's not really their fault because the desire for these things is so high, and the scalper value shoots up so quickly that unfortunately they just get overloaded by people who want them.
right, and it's got to be a nightmare scenario for GameStop employees to like have something like that happen because you have, a group of people here waiting for that long. A couple people started to trickle out actually. They just gave up and said, hey, I can't wait here anymore. I got stuff to go do. I think 3 or 4 people actually ended up leaving.
You said it was like at 3 in the afternoon, I think. So that would have been people maybe not taking their lunch break and then moving their lunch break up so they could go and do this.
And
That's
then
what
not
I
being
was
able
thinking,
to get it. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. So, I threw up that little complaint piece, and I kind of blame Nintendo for this because...
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, or I said, it's not really GameStop's fault. They're just doing what they can, given the situation that they're in.
I mean, there's got to be a better way to distribute these or something. There's got to be a way to lessen the panic, and it's just like a fervent panic for these amiibos. You have these store exclusives. The Wave 3 store exclusives were all but unobtainable after a very short time. So maybe they need to control the messaging a bit better. But friends sent me an image of Jigglypuffs at 12:30 this morning. These things had already supposedly sold out, and they were going for $90 on eBay.
Oh my God.
And these are basically eBay purchases for a pre-order that someone still might not get.
Yeah.
It's just insane. it's insane. I'm surprised the huge demand for them.
I'm not really, because we were talking about this on Twitter a while ago, and one of the things I think that Nintendo are kind of banking on is there's some nostalgia going on, and it's also because they're selling them as exclusives. So it's like the Nintendo points thing where they gave away little items that you could never find anywhere else, and people still like Nintendo enough that they're willing to go and spend that amount of money on these things that they're going to collect and keep for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say though, I'm really surprised that they took off like they did, because when I look at this whole, I mean, I understand the whole toys and video games. That's just an awesome concept. And when Spyro came out and they were doing that, I thought like the Skylanders thing. I was like, that's brilliant. It was amazing that nobody had thought of it before, or nobody had done it that well before. But with that game, I understand it, because you've got your characters and you put them on the thing, and then you get to play with them in this game.
Yeah.
And then you go over to the Amiibo, and there's
And not
very
all of
little
them can do
use.
that. Yeah.
They're basically
Almost
just statues.
no use.
Yeah,
Almost no use.
they're nicely done statues, I guess. But I mean, I don't understand why they got. I mean, obviously I do. It's Nintendo. That's why. But
That's it. It's like when I was selling a lot of computers in the 90s, we used to have this slogan where we used to say, when you sell a computer, you're not really selling what's on the outside, because lots of the stickers were like Intel. You were selling the name brand, and that was the thing. And this is the thing now with Nintendo. They're still kind of trading on their brand a lot.
yeah,
And that's how they can get these things to sell so fast.
yeah. I mean, that's the only way you could do it. Because if you come out and you're not Nintendo doing this,
It would never work.
Yeah, no, it's gonna flop. They're gonna be like, well, what's the point? But it's Nintendo. People, Nintendo has this weird nostalgia blinder thing for people.
Pretty much.
And it works for me too. I mean, I'll be honest. There are times where I'm like, oh my God, I have to have that. And then I sit down and I'm like, why? Why do I need another copy of that game? I already own it 4 times.
Right.
It's like, how many times can you play Ocarina of Time? As many times as Nintendo releases it.
Right?
Unfortunately for most people, that's the answer. No, I mean, I'm a sucker for these Amiibo. I'm sitting in line and I'm just like, I just dropped $120 on plastic. I could have bought 2 brand new games. I could be playing Bloodborne and just killing myself over like Thomas, but I'm not. I mean, he is struggling with that game, but
yeah, he is.
No, I'm a sucker for these Amiibos. They're staring at me right now.
So we're talking about Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a frustrating game. So one of the other topics that we talked about is like emotional games. And Bloodborne has this, but it's part of the Dark Souls line. So Bloodborne has this capacity to make people really angry. Are there any other like games or experiences in gaming like that you guys have had that have elicited emotional reactions from you? It doesn't have to necessarily be anger. It could be anything else.
Oh, I'm curious about this.
Yeah,
I want to
okay.
hear these stories.
I have a couple stories. The first one is a good one. When I mean, a lot of people, you have Portal 1 and Portal 2. And when a lot of people, like just like me, I played Portal 1 first, and I liked it a lot. Of course, it was a great game. But when I played Portal 2, I played it, the first time I played it, me and my wife both bought a copy, and we were playing it with headphones on in the same room. And I'm like laughing, like full on laughing out loud at this game at moments. And I can hear her laughing through my headphones, and we're just having one of the best times I've had gaming, like just one of the most fun, enjoyable, uplifting times. And then we start playing the co-op, and we're busting up the entire time. And I was just shocked. I mean, there are very few comedy video games anyway, at least nowadays.
Yeah.
And the ones that are there, a lot of them are very juvenile and very like you had, not really a comedy, but you had Bulletstorm, and they tried to go that kind of, over the top comedic route a little bit.
Right.
and it fell real flat for me.
Right.
But there was something about Portal 2 that just got me going. I mean, as soon as I started laughing at it, I didn't stop laughing, and not at the game, but with the game, with the stories they were telling, and
Right.
I really had a good time with that game.
That's cool.
I'm actually kind of surprised that we went the route of humor here. I was expecting more
Well,
anger.
I mean,
and,
no,
well, I mean,
but
we'll eventually, but yeah.
anything. It could be anything.
Surprisingly, I really agree with that. Humor in games is so hit and miss. Actually, Bulletstorm was a hit for me. That worked. Some of
Really?
it. The best line from that game is "Make like a Kaiser and roll." But yeah, see, it works. It's all in the
That's so
delivery. But yeah.
It is.
Oh, but yeah, Portal 2 is hilarious. There's some great writing in that game. One that didn't work for me, but I know a lot of people enjoyed, was Borderlands 2. I couldn't get into that humor. Didn't work for me. So it
Right.
actually ended up detracting a lot from that game, because a good part of that is that it's funny to go along with the sort of looting and shooting, which I also doesn't really appeal to me that much.
Right.
So Borderlands 2 fell real flat for me.
I actually would agree with you. I enjoyed. Oh, what was the bad guy's name?
Handsome Jack.
Handsome Jack. Yes, I enjoyed Handsome Jack stuff. I had a blast with that. But once again, like me and my wife, we love to play co-op if it's an option, and
Right.
and we've tried to play that game 3, 4, 5 times now maybe, and we get to like level 10 and we're just bored. We've already, by the time the main quest tells us to do something, we've already done like 4 side quests in that area, and it's not like, oh, go do everything in that area and come back. It's like, I just went through there, I killed 300 monsters, and now I got to go back, and it's not like I can headshot him and feel like a badass. It's like I'm headshotting him, but it's just making 10, 20 damage,
Very spongy enemies in
yeah.
that game. Very
And it
spongy.
we just got bored. We were like, we really wanted to like it because, I mean, we liked, Diablo, we like action RPGs, but it was just, it felt very slow and plotting, and you just kept going back to the same areas. And I think the next time, if we try and do it again, because we want to like it, and if we've decided that if we try and do it again, we're going to ignore all side quests until we feel like we're just massively underleveled, and then we'll do a couple. But
Right.
we're going to try and just do the main story and see if that moves the pace a little bit
Right.
closer to what we want.
Sounds like a good strategy. Sounds like a good strategy.
Okay, so my take on this is probably a little bit different, but probably a year or two ago now. I want to say it was about a year ago. And I talk about this a fair amount sometimes. I picked up To the Moon, and I picked it up because I'd heard a lot of good things about it, and then what ended up happening was a guy that I watch on YouTube, he started playing it. I was like, oh no, I want to watch him play it, but I don't want to be, I don't want to not know what's going on.
Right.
So I picked it up and I played it through, and probably, my plan actually was to ration it. I was going to go, okay, I'm going to play it like 2 hours every night until I've done it. And I got in and I started playing it, and I couldn't stop because of the story. And that is, it's every bit as emotional as everyone tells you it is, but you're not expecting it, and then suddenly it happens, and it's like, oh no, this is heartbreaking.
Huh.
But that came across in his playthrough as well, and I think a lot of people get affected by that, and I kind of wish that games would move more in that story-based direction where they're telling more interesting stories, because like you guys are talking about Borderlands. I tried playing Borderlands, but I could never get through a couple of minutes of it because there was just nothing there. It felt kind of empty.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I get what you're talking about. Actually, a good game that was kind of a weird one for me was Brothers. Have either of you
yes,
played
the-
Brothers?
I have not played it yet, but I hear good things.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I won't spoil anything, but I will do my best to talk about the game without ruining anything for you. First of all, you should play it. You should definitely play Brothers. It's very much worth it. That
Okay.
game was very affecting for me. Actually, like the end of it kind of hit me like a sack of bricks. But
Yeah.
That game manages to tell a really cool and kind of touching story without ever saying anything. The characters don't talk. It's
Yeah.
really impressive that it can communicate so much with simple gestures and just the way the environment's laid out. Like, I had no problem. I flew through that game in like a sitting. It's just,
Okay.
it's an amazing experience. I recommend it to anyone.
Okay.
Very
Right.
effective.
Would you say it's kind of the same kind of thing as Journey, where it completely nonverbal, but just kind of a story still gets told along the way, kind of thing?
I would say that, except for I haven't played Journey.
Oh,
Oh, you should.
Sir.
Journey is amazing.
yeah.
And see, now I get to be told to go play something. So yes,
No, seriously.
I never got
You see,
around to playing it, and I
This is
really
one-
should.
This is one of the things that frustrates me about like the Sony. They're not Daybreak, but Sony stuck that game to the PlayStation so much, and it's the kind of game that I think would work really well, especially Journey in the PC environment, and they just never brought it to the PC, and it's like, oh, sad. But I ended up playing it with a friend of mine because he knows what kind of things I like. So he had a PlayStation 3, and he got that, and we played Heavy Rain together. Same thing, he said you will like this not because of the gore or that kind of stuff, but you'll like the story. And goodness, if you haven't played Journey is worth playing.
I would completely agree with that. I want to talk about another game that brought out an emotion for me, but this
Sure.
one's kind of already been beaten to death. The
Right.
Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
I really did not expect to get into it as much as I did. I mean, I expected it to be a good story because everybody had said it was. I played it after
Right.
everybody had already been talking about it. But just to set things up, I am a skinny married white guy. Just to set this up, and I have never in my life, and I don't have kids, by the way, but I have never in my life played a game and felt so much like I was that person than I did in The Walking Dead.
Right.
And I mean, this guy is, I mean, he doesn't have a kid, obviously, Clementine, but he's raising a kid in a zombie outbreak. His entire, he's on the other side of the country from me. His entire life should not be something I can relate to for the most part, other than the normal
Right.
human experiences. But there was something so moving about it that, I mean, there were times where I forgot I was playing this other character.
Yeah.
And the Clementine moments where you're talking to her and explaining that, things are bad, and it's asking you, do you want to tell her that this horrible, horrible thing happened, or do you want to spare her from that? And that no
Right.
matter, one of those things you pick, it could go real bad, and you don't know which one. I mean, it could really hurt her if you tell her. It could really get her killed if you don't.
Yeah.
And it was very emotionally draining for me. I'd play through an episode at a sitting if I could, and then I'd have to take a break and just not play the game for a while because I was like distraught over what was happening.
I think that what helps with that game, though, is the fact that Clementine is kind of the focal point. And I think that's what makes it so affecting, is that she's like 14, I think, and you have to either tell her these things and maybe make her life a little easier because she'll learn from them, or you can choose to hide them from her, in which case that might eventually, do something terrible to her. And I think that people who are, I want to say, like, becoming adults, they're looking at this and they're going, oh, well, it's a Walking Dead game, and then they get this thing where it's not really just a Walking Dead game, it's about Clementine, and that affects people a lot. I think that if you took Clementine out of that story, it would be completely different for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, if you didn't have Clementine in that story, most of the emotion I think would be gone from that.
Right.
Yeah, but they did an amazing job with that. I'm very eager. I haven't played. What's their next one? The one they did, the Big Bad Wolf.
Wolf Among Us.
Wolf Among Us. Yeah, I've picked it up on a Steam sale, and I'm very eager to play it. I just got to find the time.
Wolf Among Us isn't as emotionally draining. I'll tell
I
you
figured,
that now.
yeah.
Right up.
I
It
can't
looks
imagine.
really cool though.
They kind of had lightning in a bottle with The Walking Dead, and I can't
did.
imagine they're going to be able to pick that up again, at least to that degree.
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it. I mean that game gets a lot of talking. It's another game I haven't played. Got on behind. But
No,
yeah,
it's
I
okay.
mean,
I've never
people-
played it either. I'm not planning to either because it's just not my thing. I don't like The Walking Dead.
yeah, people talk about the game an awful lot, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, maybe I
Yeah.
should
Here's the
take a
thing,
dip
though.
into this.
I didn't like the show as much.
Okay.
I wasn't a big fan of it. I think I watched a part of the first season, and I said, okay, it's fine, but it's not going anywhere. And
What
it's not
you're
doing
into.
anything.
Right.
But like I said, there was something, and I think it was the emotional attachment you get to Clementine.
Right.
Because the game was not perfect. It had a ton of bugs. There were a lot of issues, and
It's
for
a
being
telltale game.
exactly, yeah, for being so cinematic, it has all these jerky movements, but when it hits right, it just got me.
It hits well. Yeah.
That's another game to put on my list, but I'm gonna keep Journey above it.
Yeah, I would.
Actually, I want to.
Yeah. I would too. I mean, okay, but I'm biased against The Walking Dead, so.
All right, so let's switch up emotions. We've covered happiness through comedy. We've covered sadness. So let's move on to anger. And
Hand of Fate.
so I'm sure as people who play video games, we've all experienced the extreme knee-jerk reaction of wanting to break something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna start this off with two stories.
Sure.
Both of these involve broken controllers.
Okay.
So at one point I downloaded Mario Kart 64 for the Wii. This was a long time ago now, but
Okay.
I was actually playing with my Wavebird. I was attempting a 150cc cup, and my Wavebird soared. I was on the last lap. I was just about to cross the finish line, and that bullshit blue shell, it had to come right then. It had to come, and it wasn't good enough to just slow me down so I lost first. Nope. It stopped me completely, and then I got hit by a red shell, and then someone passed in front of me and dropped a banana and knocked me back further off a cliff, so Lackey 2 has to bring me
I
back
shouldn't laugh,
up.
I'm sorry.
And I'm just like, I'm in dead last crossing the finish line in this last race of a cup, and I'm just like, I really hate this game.
Yeah, that
And
was
my Wavebird just met the wall. And it was like, I can't do this. And that's sad because Wavebirds are really expensive now.
Yeah, more expensive than they really should be.
Oh yeah, by a long shot. Another game that got me to I don't remember the specifics of it, but I do remember I broke a PS2 controller on it. Was
Okay.
the last boss of Zone of the Enders 2.
Oh my
I don't
god.
remember. I don't remember anything specific other than it was unhinged bullshit. Some kind of a teleporting thing. It's just impossible. You had to dodge a bunch of attacks before you could even land a hit. It was just a nightmare.
I played Zone of Enders 1 and 2 so damn much. I don't know
So
why.
you know
but I
what I'm
love it.
talking about.
Yeah,
Right.
that final. Oh my god.
It's a thing. I think it's a suit like you, and it teleports constantly, and it's always away from you. You have to get up to it, and it just knocks you back. And I was like, ugh, I hate this game. But I finished it out. I finished it out with another controller. So
That's very good.
maybe you guys have more modern rage stories.
Okay, so I've got two stories as well. I've been playing Hand of Fate with an eye to review it for a long, long time now, probably since its release week, which is February. I still haven't beaten that game, and the reason why I haven't beaten that game is because it's laden with what I think of as the developer hates you stuff. And I don't get frustrated. I'm not the kind of guy who gets frustrated. I'm very mellow. But it's the kind of game where, at this point, I only want to see it every once a week for a couple of hours so I can see if I can beat the end boss. I still haven't beaten him. But I don't think I'll ever finish that game, and it's frustrating. So that's one story. The second story is midway through last year. This is an old game, though. It's a game called Demon Stone. And Demon Stone is kind of like an action-based D&D game.
Yeah, the D&D game. Okay, I just played that recently.
Oh god. Did you know halfway through where you are up against that wall, the door?
Oh, yeah.
The ice barrier door? That was such ridiculous silliness. Wowee. So, to set this up for no one who's ever played this game, because it's very niche and not a lot of people played it, midway through the game, suddenly, for no apparent reason, you get stuck by this door. And the way the door works is that you're on a platform, and there are guys coming to the left, and guys coming to the right, and guys coming just ahead of you. And then there are these 4 alcoves with these 4 guys. And the way it works is that the only way you can destroy the door is if you kill all these 4 guys in the 4 alcoves. But remember, you're being swarmed from the left and right. And the thing is that once you've destroyed the 4 guys, you have to go and beat up on the door, but you're still being swarmed. And there's no way for you to charge up your attack so you can hit the door hard, because that's the only way you can destroy the door. And then the worst part is that should you destroy a portion of the door, those 4 guys in the 4 alcoves, they respawn.
Oh my god.
And then they start healing the door. I got stuck there for like 8 hours. It's like ridiculous. And again, it was something that I could only play in small doses. And the minute I got through that door, I was so elated. That was like, thank goodness.
That for sure sounds like the developer just hates you.
The developer, it really was a case that the developer, they got this point where maybe the publisher was like putting too much pressure on them or something. They're like, you know what, we'll take it out on the players.
Yeah, it felt like that was the only, like, okay, there were some issues with that game elsewhere, but it felt like that part of the game just didn't get play tested at all. Like the difficulty spiked so damn hard in that section that, oh god, there were numerous times with that game though that I almost gave up and just said screw it, it's not worth it.
Yeah, because there's a section right after that where you run through and there's another portal and there's a woman there that sits on the top of the portal and spawns in guys, and you're on a platform. Again, you have to hit people at range and you have to hope for the best, because if you don't hit those people, they're just going to keep on wailing on you. And it was just, it wasn't, I get the feeling that they made the game and then they rushed through playtesting.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the money to do proper playtesting, because they spent all their money on getting Star Trek guy. What's his name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Oh, it's going to bug me now until I think about it.
There were actually a couple of big name, named people in there.
He was the biggest.
Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head now.
And it's terrible because the minute we do remember, someone's going to go, oh yes, that's right. We all know that guy.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, that's right.
Yeah.
They spent all their money on that guy.
Yeah. I mean, they had Patrick Stewart, Michael Clark Duncan, a couple others. Yeah. I remember going into it and I was like, oh, Patrick Stewart's narrating it. Maybe it'll be good.
That should be good.
Yeah.
No,
maybe
it's not
so
really.
much.
That's not a safe way to. Seaman would have been great then.
Okay, so if you want to play the game, rather do yourself a favor, look someone up on YouTube who has played it, watch them play it, and then derive all your joy from Patrick Stewart's narration.
Yeah.
The end.
That's probably your best bet. Even the combat felt so floaty in that game. Like I didn't feel like I was hitting anything.
Yeah.
It was not enjoyable.
The best part of that game was probably the rogue, by far and away.
See, I hardly ever touched the rogue, because she died so quickly. Okay. But
yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay,
so I just looked this game's box art up. I remember seeing this in stores for some reason. I think I almost got it at one point.
Oh, thank goodness you didn't. You dodged a bullet.
It sounds like it. All right, so we've got, well, maybe not one more emotion, but one more game related to emotion to cover, and that's fear. So, any of you guys play horror games?
Phantasmagoria.
Define horror. Yeah, not developers being cruel to you. That's a different kind of horror.
So at the beginning I said we're going to talk a little bit about Phantasmagoria, and we're here. The thing about Phantasmagoria is that it sets itself. It's not a good game. I'm just gonna say that in advance. It's not a good game. Because like the violence that does happen is so ridiculous and over the top. But the dread of building up to that violence, because it plods along. It's a really slow game. If it had been a movie, it would have been a very slow horror movie until the end, and then suddenly it all just turns into a gory bloody mess. But the kind of dread that the game installs is palpable. It comes through in everything. Like the music is very eerie. The whole mansion that you're wandering around is foreboding. I can't play it at night. I tried on the first night because I thought, oh well, it's a horror game. The best way to play this is with headphones and the lights down. And then I got through the first day. And it's like, no, I don't play during the day. I'm sorry.
All right, so I've
I don't
never
like
played this
parties,
game, but I just looked it up, and I've got to say, this is giving me a Night Trap vibe. So this is one of those games that use the live actors. Is
Right.
that what this is?
Yes.
Okay. I love games that look like this. I think they're really neat. I think that style of making a game is
might
really
like-
neat.
You might like Phantasmagoria then, but Sierra learned from all the mistakes of that game, and they made a much better, not really a horror game, but they made a much better kind of mystery game after that called Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within, and that's much better, like miles and away much better.
Okay,
But
I'll
Sierra
check this out.
had Phantasmagoria, and it was their big experiment. Can we make an FNV game? And they did.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those I never played. I'm not the biggest fan of FMV games. They're
Yeah, they're very hit and miss.
Yeah.
Either the actors are there and they're present and correct and they act well, or it's a shambles.
yeah.
Which at
And-
that point
and
you
that's
can
one-
definitely bank on it being terrible and fun because of it.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with Phantasmagoria. Like, it builds up its suspense and its horror so well, and then, like, the actors are goofy and ridiculous, and it's just like,
No, it's wasted.
Yeah, you're killing it. Okay, so since we're talking about fear in video games,
right.
I'm not the biggest horror game player, partly because I do get just scared beyond belief. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But oddly enough, my favorite and spookiest time I've ever had in a video game, and I've played some of the more recent horror games, and yeah, they've scared me like nobody's business. But playing, which one was it? It was Thief, the third one.
Okay.
I don't remember the tagline they had under it, but it was this one level in it. Most of the Thief series is Deadly Shadows. The Thief series is not a horror genre by any means.
I know what he's talking
Yeah.
about.
There's this one level you get to toward the end of the game, and it's this abandoned what would you call it? Where they keep kids that need to be foster homed or adoption. Yeah, orphanage. There we go. Okay, sorry,
Orphanage, yeah.
my brain shut down. So it's this orphanage, and it's abandoned, and you're going through, and it's just the most creepy music and atmosphere and voices, and then things start walking in front of you, and it scared the crap out of me, and I barely got through it by playing like 10 minutes at a time and just being like, okay, I got to save now, and I got to walk away, and I got to do something else.
Right.
So I get through it, and my game crashes. After I had beaten it, I got out and I was doing something else. My game crashes, and my save game is corrupted.
Oh no!
And I never played it again because I was
Oh,
like,
that
I
was
can't do it again.
Yeah, I was going to say that was like an emotion bonus for you because you played it again, so you got angry, and then you got scared.
No, I could not.
It's the entire cycle: frustration, then you're just kind of dealing with it.
Yeah, no, I was so upset when it crashed like that, and then because I was like, oh, I'll just jump back in, no big deal, and then it popped up with that corrupted, and I was like, no, that's it, done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough. All right, so I guess I'm of the group here. I'm the survival horror junkie. I think
Okay.
I've played just about everything that's horror,
Okay.
except for some of the newer PC ones because me and PC don't get along so well. So I know nothing of Amnesia, even though I tried to
you'll
play it a
probably
little bit.
You'll
But
probably like it.
I actually recently I played Outlast. I tried to play Alien Isolation, and I think at this point I might be broken just because these games don't do anything for me anymore.
Right.
I remember being like terrified of Resident Evil and like Silent Hill, but
Yeah.
I play these games now that are much more graphically capable and just much more atmospheric. They have great sound design, and they just don't do anything for me anymore. I've become incredibly desensitized to fear, and it's kind of disappointing because I really like scary games. But
Okay.
Okay, now here's a question for you then. Is it that you've just played enough and you no longer get scared by these types of games? Or is the added production value actually hurting it? Because it's kind of like a book. You read a book and you have strong emotions because everything that's happening is kind of happening in your head. You're kind of making up for a lot. So when
Yep.
when you're playing these old games like the old Silent Hill, you've got it's so low res and everything's in fog because the PlayStation couldn't handle more than 2 feet.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that the fog is probably a great contributing factor because you just don't know what's going to jump out at you.
Exactly. And so your mind is racing with all this stuff that, oh, is that blood and guts on the wall? Oh my God, that looks so creepy. But then you go to high definition, and high definition is not real life. So you look at it and you're like, oh, it's blood and guts, but it doesn't look real. So it doesn't, it doesn't look like you're something really scared of. So you're losing that, like your mind is adding to it because it's so high def, but you're not getting, you're kind of like in that weird uncanny valley of horror where, it's not real enough to be scary, but it's not kind of fake enough to allow you to scare yourself.
Yeah, I think it's actually a combination of those things because, I mean, weirdly enough, I'm a huge horror movie fan too. And there was that shift in film as well where they sort of changed from the unseen thing, which is like it's all about suspense, to where with like The Thing, they just showed it and everyone was freaked out. And then since then, it's been kind of like, well, we just showed too much. So now there's no suspense anymore, which I think that definitely plays into it. But I'm not convinced that even a game that was all completely built on suspense would work real great for me now, though. I mean, I've yet to see a game that really does it well. I mean, I played Outlast, and people were going on about how scary that is, and I ended up just being frustrated with it.
Right.
I mean, the enemies clearly telegraph their presence. They rarely ever creep up on you, and when they get close enough, you're just dead. So it's one of those things where there's no point in running. Just hit that checkpoint back.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a thing with like modern game design being too forgiving. But then I'm not sure I'm really afraid of the game or at that point, or I'm really afraid of losing progress.
Right. Which is more of a punishment, which actually I kind of want to bring up. I've been thinking about this for a little bit on that kind of same subject. I don't think that death in video games should be a punishment. And I think if they're using it as a punishment, they're doing it wrong. Because the ideal situation is you play a game, and if you die, you need to learn the situation, you get better, and you move on, right? Like you conquer the obstacle in front of you. But if it's purposefully like just punishing you, that's not helping you get better and learn the situation. That's just pissing you off.
Exactly. Right. But then that's a fine line to walk because of the way games are set up and how they've been set up for so long. It's, it's that artifact of the early video games relying on lives because of arcades and, home rentals. I remember reading stories about games coming to the States, and they would intentionally decrease the amount of lives you have in the U.S. version to get more rentals out of games. So
I wouldn't at all be surprised. The early game industry was a mess.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just that quarter-munching design. So it's like that's an artifact of an old time long gone.
And, like if you look at old arcade games, they have dip switches, and the way the dip switches work is you can set the difficulty. And what the guys would do in the mornings is they come in and they'd set the dip switches to like insanely hard. And there were dip switches that would set the thing to like walk in the park easy, but the only way they could extract it was like getting blood out of stone because you only had so many quarters. And the thing is that you'd want to see the end of the game, so what you would do is you'd just keep on feeding the game quarters until you got to the end.
Yep.
And that was part of the design for those games.
Well, and I think a lot of that design concepts, I mean, a lot of the video game designers of the time cut their teeth on arcade games like that.
Yeah.
And then you started the home console market, and that's why you look at the early consoles. You look at Nintendo, you look at the Super Nintendo, and they were just often brutally hard because that was just the mindset of the developer at the time. But now you look back, I mean, there are games from back then that I don't want to play because while I would enjoy them, they're just too damn hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of Battletoads. Although, hey, I wonder if we're getting a new one soon. But aside from that, it's kind of funny when you look into the PS2 era. You see a lot of Sony's games, like the Ratchet and Clank and Jack series, still keeping that sort of like you could still die, but now lives aren't a thing. And games slowly, even like the JRPGs, you know, doing the thing where going to a save point would heal your character. And just sort of throwing gamers a bone while still keeping the old setup of if you die, you have to reload, or if you die, you lose a life, and if you lose your lives, you have to restart.
That's it. Game over.
Yeah.
But,
no,
you know,
and that
like,
was one of those things that, you know, you get a game over and it's game over. You got to start over. That always frustrated the hell out of me because there'd be that level, like level 4, for instance, and every time I get to it, I die, but I only get to it once every couple of months because the rest of the game is so hard. So I don't have a chance to improve on level 4. So every time I get to it, it's like new.
It's like, oh, hey, I've gotten here before, but I don't remember any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, even some more like modern games. Like I recently played the newest Donkey Kong, and that game, I think it does have lives, but I mean, they're never an issue in modern Nintendo games. They give you so many lives, but you would get to bosses in that game, and they would just be these gauntlets of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And it's like, I've cleared phase 1 and 2 16 times. I need to do 3 now.
Yep. Yeah. No, I played that, and I remember thinking that certain parts of it were ridiculously hard compared to the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But
Right,
I mean,
so-
that's modern game design is a bit weird like that. I had a friend, he was playing it through Human Revolution, Deus Ex, and he said that like most of the game was ridiculous. It was a cakewalk, and then you got to the bosses, and suddenly the bosses threw everything that you learned out the window, and you had to learn whole new strategies. And
Which is terrible game design. Just
that game had infamously broken boss fights. They're just
pretty much.
like,
And he said that. He said like, so you learn how to play, and you're doing really well, and then suddenly you hit a boss, and the boss is like, yeah, you know, you've learned all the strategy. Sorry, it doesn't work.
I hear that the director's cut addressed some of that. I've never actually played it.
Okay.
But I remember that first boss fight hit me like, what?
Yeah.
I ended up dumping a bunch of points into the thing that just turns you into a bullet. Or it just makes you shoot bullets out all around you, and I just spammed that next to the boss. Like, this is garbage.
Yeah. I remember wasting what I felt was wasting points on the combat skills during the boss fight just to get past that damn boss fight. Because I'd been mostly stealth up to that point, but
which is
that was kind of what he said. He said, you know, like you're supposed to be a stealthy agent, and then suddenly, no, actually you're not. We were kidding about that.
Yeah.
The game just needs to give you the tools there. I mean, if they're gonna make you fight, it like give you some space and just give you a weapon of mass destruction that you can't carry out of the area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's one of the things I loved about the first Deus Ex. I remember there was a fight kind of like the first fight in the new Deus Ex, where you're coming out of this underground bunker, and you could get into this fight with this giant dude that would just tear you up if you weren't ready for combat. Or you could sneak past him, or I mean, there was like 6 or 7 different ways to deal with that fight. You could talk him out of it, and then I loved that. And then I went to this one and it was like, really? I have to fight him? There's no other option? I can't. I mean, I just spent all these points to make my guy like a hypnotist and I can't talk him out of it?
Exactly. Like it was a real shortcoming in that game. You know, to just have all those options for talking, and you can't talk your way out of this fight. You can't
Sorry.
hack your way out of this fight. No sneaking here. Here's an arena.
Good luck.
Good
If you're not
luck.
set up for it, it's gonna brutalize you.
That pistol's not going to help here. No.
Alright, I think that's about it. We've covered everything that we wanted to cover.
Yeah,
Um,
and we're
Plus
actually
more. And
just
more.
over an hour in. So
Yeah, well,
Alright.
that's and I think that was pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say it's probably time to wrap things up. Anybody have anything last minute they want to say? Kind of what they're going to be doing this weekend?
I have a third part of the thing that I'm talking
Oh,
about,
sure.
the whole money thing coming out probably maybe on Monday. It might not be Monday because it's Easter, so it might not go up on Monday, but you'll see some more opinion stuff go up soon.
Excellent.
I'm-
I've been really
very
enjoying that
grateful to
series.
Everyone, thank you. I've been really grateful to everyone for their comments and for reading it. It's been real fun writing that sort of stuff for you guys.
No, your writing's great. I love your articles. So,
Thank you so much.
I'm hopefully going to get
also,
around to. Well, go ahead.
Before I forget, everyone have a great Easter weekend.
Oh, yes. You
Yep,
too.
Sunday. All right.
That's right.
If you have Easter, have a great Easter weekend.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry, okay, I interrupted you. Karen, go.
I'm hopefully gonna get a review up soon, very soon, for Resident Evil Revelations 2, which
Awesome.
been a long time coming, but yeah, I finally, I think I've played enough to write something. No, that game
good.
surprisingly took a lot more of my time than I thought it would. So
Really?
yeah, that
Again,
raid
hand
mode,
of fate.
that
hand of
raid
fate.
mode. Ah,
All right. I will actually be gone all of next week. I'm going on a business trip cross country, so I won't be. I might have access to the internet. I might be able to do a little bit on the site as far as some news or something. But for the most part, I'll be gone. So before I leave, you can expect to see. I've got a stream that we did about a week ago of Warlocks versus Shadows, which is still in beta. So I've got that that I'm going to put up, and then I've got another stream, another couple streams actually that I'm trying to get all worked up and get the intro in and everything so I can get them up before I leave on Sunday.
Sounds awesome.
all right. So yeah, this is what episode 2 of the Twinstiq
The
podcast.
Twinstiq.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a name.
It's called if speaking of which, if you guys have any comments about the name, please leave them for us and we can read them and we can start giving it an actual name. It would be fantastic if you come up with a name because that would make it yours.
Indeed, I would like
Yep.
that. All right, so thanks to the both of you for joining me,
No
for
problem.
having me. Since you guys had started this this whole tonight's podcast before I even got here, so thank you.
We're glad to be here, I'm sure.
Right.
All right, so then
Thank you, folks. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Hey, enjoy your weekends.